All right, what is up, Utes fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And today we're going to be talking about the Utah Utes 2023 roster. We've had a few transfers, we've had a few people declare for the draft. I have a few projections I had to make of people that I think are going to declare for the draft that we have just not gotten a confirmation on yet. So I had to kind of make that call there. But overall, I think you guys will like the breakdown. It did take a lot of work. It did take a lot of time to put all this together. So if you guys are appreciating it, please do make sure you guys like the video. That'll help get it out to more Utes fans. Also, comment down below. Are there guys that you think should be in the starting lineup that I don't have in the starting lineup? Are there guys that you think I'm underselling or overselling? Feel free to drop that in the chat. Or if you just agree with me, feel free to do that as well. And number one thing, guys, if you guys want some Utah Utes football content this offseason, this is the channel to be. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I look forward to putting out a lot of content for you guys in the coming weeks and months of this offseason. And on that note, let's go ahead and we're going to break down the entire roster for the Utes and the projected depth chart. So we'll take a look at every position, see the strengths and weaknesses, there's a lot to go over. And I think if you're a real football nerd like myself, you'll have a lot of fun with this one. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. All right. The first position group that we're going to be looking at is going to be the quarterback room. Now, the quarterback room has a good chunk of guys like you won't see him on the screen here, guys like Brandon Rose and Matt Howard, the freshman coming in. It's not that I don't think those guys have potential, but looking at next year, I think these are the three guys. So the first guy is Cam Rising. Now, I know a lot of people, criticized Cam's last year. There were a couple bad games in there for sure, but I think some of the hate Cam got last year was a little unwarranted, right? He still graded out at a 79.1, which was extremely good. He needs to stay healthy in this coming year, but overall, he still played really well. Obviously, 2021 was an exceptional year with the 84.7 grade. But Cam is a super good quarterback. He's obviously the clear starter here and should be a big player for the Utes next year. I won't spend too much time talking about him, but definitely a guy I'm excited is coming back to this team next year. So the next thing is who is the quarterback too. So Bryson Barnes grades out pretty well when he gets in, right? 2022 and 2021, a 78.1 in 21 and a 75.1 in 22. Now, both those have a decent number of snaps. I think it's 100 or so in both season. Uh, but he's really I feel like when I was watching that Penn State game, the number one thing that stood out to me is Bryson Barnes. I don't know how well he can hang against that top tier talent. I think he's a really good game manager. He has some real athleticism, but he doesn't have any specific traits that are just elite. And I think sometimes when you're going against teams that have lots of players like a Penn State or SEC or, top of the Big Ten, top of the SEC, you wind up going against teams that have a lot of elite players, and not having elite traits, I think hurts you and I think makes it difficult to really be an impact player in those games. Now, that's where Nate Johnson comes in. So you could see where the grades usually are for Nate Johnson. I put that he only played 13 snaps. He graded in the 80s as a quarterback, but on only 13 snaps, I felt it was a little disingenuous to put that out there like it was a fact, right? um, in 2021, he was a 4-star recruit. I think in the very small flashes we saw of Nate Johnson, he looked really, really good. He looked like he has a lot of high end potential. And from what I understand, the reason Bryson Barnes was in instead of Nate Johnson is because they game planned for Bryson Barnes. Like he was taking all the second team reps. So when I see that, that tells me that this offseason, you need to game plan for Nate Johnson to be the second string guy. I don't know how that's going to play out exactly, but to me, it feels clear. Nate Johnson's got a year in the system under his belt. He looked awesome when he got in last year, and hopefully they can really start to mold a second string offense around him. So next year, when Cam Rising's gone, Nate will be in his redshirt sophomore year at that point. that he can take the reins and make it happen. So that's the quarterback position for Utah. Cam Rising, number one. I'm hoping Nate Johnson will be number two. And then we got Bryson Barnes, number three. But either way, a really good number two and number three quarterback with an awesome starter in Cam Rising. Okay, now we're going to look at the wide receivers and tight ends for Utah. I think for a lot of people watching this video, I'm guessing these two position groups are probably two of the most interesting, especially with wide receivers. So, what we've got up top, the guys with the big pictures are the guys that I think will clearly get the majority of the playing time, or at least that's the projection. And then at the bottom, you'll see some guys that I think have potential to step up and maybe make an impact. So, first guy we're going to look at is going to be Devon Vele at the left of the screen here, wide receiver number one, Devon Vele. So, in 2021, he was a 58.9 grade. Had games where he was a big time playmaker, but really didn't seem to consistently string together big games. Well, in 2022, that changed a little bit. In 2022, Devon Vele became a big time playmaker for Utah, really started to establish himself as the number one guy at Utah, clearly. And then over the course of the season started to establish himself as one of the better um, wide receivers in the Pac 12. Now, to be clear, he's probably not up there in the top three or top four of Pac 12 in the 2022 season, but he's definitely got the type of upside to be a big time receiver in the 2023 season. And when we look at Devon Vele, I want you guys to think about this. We took a big jump in this past year. And now that we got Coach Bump out, as much as I talked about it, Coach Bump was a great recruiter. I'm excited to see who we bring in as a receiver coach. I think there's a reason it hasn't happened yet. It's because, one, I think Witt is probably debating whether to hire a receiving coach from the outside or bring one of his own guys in. I'm sure that's a question, or, promote one of his own guys. I'm sure that's got to be a question for him. But overall, no matter who that wide receiver coach is, I think it'll be good for the Utes. And hopefully we can really get a guy focused more on player development than on just recruiting. Okay, the other wide receiver you're going to see to the right of the screen there is Money Parks. Really came on strong at the end of last season. In 2021, a 52.3 grade, but took a pretty big stride in 2022 to a 64.2. Now, that's not the grade you want him to have in general. It's an average grade. It's not a bad grade. But for your wide receiver number two, that's what you're going to want. And when I say Money Parks is the wide receiver number two, he could be more of a slot receiver that he's got kind of that type of body and he seems to thrive there. But what I mean is the wide receiver number two in the sense that he's getting a lot of the reps, right? He's getting 75% of those when there's two wide receivers out there, whether that's slot, whether that's both out wide. I think you want him getting 70 plus, 75, 80 plus percent of those snaps. That's what I'd like to see for Money Parks this next year because he seems like the prime candidate to take over as the number one once Vele's gone. Now, you look at the bottom of the screen here where it says other receivers or other wide receivers or other WRs to be exact. We got a list of guys here. Seriously, I think you guys remember if you guys have been following the recruiting videos we do on this channel. There's a stack of guys. Look at all these guys. A lot of these guys are 1 year in, right? So first got to look at is Makai Cope. Makai, he's the first one on this little list here. He had a ton of hype coming into this last year. He killed it in the spring game, and everyone was talking about him that he was about to be a stud. And, he seemed like he was going to be coming into this year what Money Parks and Jalen Dixon actually did. So, Makai Cope, don't forget about him. I would not be shocked at all to see him come in. And if I'm looking at all these guys, he would be the most likely for me to be the wide receiver three. But he's the most likely individual, but I'd say there's so much talent here that I don't think him against the group is a surefire shot that it's him against the group. The other guy you're going to see just to the right of Makai Cope is Tyquan Gilmore. He actually came on this channel, did an interview with me. Nice guy, seems like a hard worker. He's here, he's getting this done for his family, and seems like he's really got his head on straight. Now he's had some struggles last year, didn't get a ton of playing time. And I remember there was one opportunity he got to return a punt or something that he dropped it, and I think it was in the Arizona game and they recovered, and that was sad. But this is a guy that was a transfer last year, has a year in the system, and hopefully could start to contribute a little more. I don't know if he's the wide receiver 3, but I definitely think he has that type of upside to start becoming a contributor this year. After him, you'll see Tao Johnson. Tao Johnson is a really good player. Coming out of high school, I was a huge fan. He did an interview on this channel as well. You know, really, really athletic, really fast, straight baller. Um, I think with him, the thing was he didn't have a ton of receiver reps in high school. He was a quarterback, if I remember correctly. Maybe. Don't quote me on that, but I remember he didn't have a lot of receiver reps. Very athletic, very fast though, and really good kid. Really good kid. Like really fits the Utah program. But then we got Jet Miney. He's the blonde guy right there, the one blonde. He has one other factor that none of the other wide receivers have, but you guys can put that together as well. Jet Miney, really good guy, dude. Another guy came on the channel um, out of Corner Canyon High School. The tape was awesome. He was a PWO, I believe, last year, but the tape was fantastic, dude. And I've been excited for this guy. So if he winds up stepping up and becoming the guy to fill that slot role, do not be surprised. He is very talented. Then we got Chris Reed, right? A guy that was some real good football skills that I saw on tape, right? When I watched this tape, and any of these guys, just so you guys know as we break this down, any of these guys that stick out to you or that you want more info about, I probably have a recruiting video already done for them. So check out, especially with these receivers. So check out the recruiting playlist and find them. But so Chris Reed, a guy I liked a lot, another guy came on the channel, a lot of football skills. Like his upside is like an outside big play wide receiver. He's got the body, he's got the frame. There's another guy here. He's the last one on the screen there. His name's Sydney and Banasor. A lot of people had a lot of hype for him going into this past year as well. Very big, 6'5", physical guy. Guy I wouldn't be shocked to see transition to tight end. But overall, just a guy that had some ability, some skills he needed to develop. Really athletic, really big, but kind of like Tao Johnson, hadn't played a ton of receiver. So that's Sydney and Banasor. All right, now let's move on to the tight ends. So tight end 1 here, we got Brant Keithy. Brant Keithy, solid year in, year out, just a beast. Last year was actually by far his lowest grade. The 3 years prior were fantastic grades. And there was a trend over the entire Utah team last season that as the season went on, the grades basically over almost unanimously got quite a bit better. So you would imagine Brant Keithy's 67.5 would have gone up to at least the low 70s. But every year outside of that, I think he's well into the 70s. And in 2021, 77.6. I mean, I remember when he got injured, we were talking about him being the best tight end in college football. So our tight end 1 is solidified. Little bit of injury concern, but overall, a monster player in Brant Keithy and a guy you got to be really excited to have back. Now, tight end 2 to me also seems pretty obvious. It's going to be Thomas Yasmin. A lot of questions with Thomas Yasmin, right? It felt like when he was asked to be the number 1 guy, it didn't go too well, right? It didn't, at least to me, I didn't think it went super well. 2022 is one of his best grades at a 64. That's an average grade, solid grade. Overall, I thought he had a good season. He had some ups and downs and struggled when he was the number 1 guy. But when he wasn't the number 1 guy, which should be the case next year with Brant coming back, he had a bunch of big explosive plays and is a monster when the ball is in his hand. I think one thing I'd really like to see with Thomas Yasmin is scheme him into the game plan. Like maybe a tight end around or a tight end screen. The guy is so athletic. Don't make him go catch jump balls or run nice routes. I don't think that's his thing. I don't think he's terrible at it, but I think scheme ways to get him in, and you'll take a lot more. You'll use his abilities a lot more than what we're doing now. All right. So the next group right here, other tight ends, you'll see it at the bottom right of the screen. So one guy I was excited as I went through the PFF grades is Tiniali Pututau. He's the guy that doesn't have the white background. So Tinielli is a really good run blocker, almost 100 snaps last year, and like 80 of those snaps or so were run blocking. And his run block rate was quite high. So I would be looking at him. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I would actually go ahead and book the ticket right now. I would not be surprised if he is the fullback role this year. Real big kid, strong, powerful, and great run blocker. Could use a and he only had like something like 8 or 9 uh, plays that were passing plays that he was on the field, and in those passing plays, he caught 2 receptions and 17 yards, and for such a small sample size, at least it tells you they trust him. Okay, the other guy is Munir McClain. Now, Munir McClain is a guy that has gotten to see the field quite a bit in a rotational role as more of a receiving tight end. The grade was quite bad last year, though, so I'm not sure what we will see from him headed into 2023. But I thought I'd bring him up anyways because the staff does give him a lot of playing time, and I wouldn't be shocked if he saw the field. Now, there is also the freshman tight end coming in, 3-star freshman out of Idaho, very good player. Who knows if he could steal some of that playing time, but you'll see it as a trend throughout the whole video. I'm not going to really bank on freshmen making impact. It's really rare that that happens. It does happen, but usually it's really exceptional players. And even in that case, it's still pretty rare. But that's the wide receivers and tight ends. I hope you guys appreciated that. Let me know what you guys think of the other groups. Who do you guys think is going to make an impact? I feel like for this position group, I don't think this is very controversial. I feel like the starters are the starters here. But who do you guys think is going to make an impact in the wide receiver and tight end room? Next position group is going to be the running backs that we'll be looking at for Utah. So I think it's pretty clear after how last year came to a close that Jaquindon Jackson will be the guy. Yes, his grade of a 91.7, which is ridiculously good, is only on like 143 snaps. But let's be real. This guy was the guy, right? So it's not like I feel like 143 snaps when it's like 5 to 10 snaps a game throughout the course of a season, right? Or 5 to 10 to 15 a game. It's not super reflective, but what he did was like the last 2 to 4 games, he started to become the guy and became our lead back. So that 91.7 to me is well deserved. He looked good against every team we played once he became a running back. He wasn't even a running back until like a little before halfway through the season. I thought it was a fluke. I was like, okay, I guess they're just trying to manufacture a way to get him to see the field. But that was not the case. He is a monster running back and a guy that I think in this 2023 season is going to make a big impact. And he already did at the end of 2022, so it should be expected. And in 2021, he was a quarterback, so the grade's not that important. But I do love the idea of some trick plays being thrown in there. I was surprised we didn't do it this year, but the guy was a 4-star quarterback. He's got an arm. I would love to see us do some like toss plays or something like that where he just shoots a rocket downfield. So, like I said, I think Jaquindon Jackson is going to be the number one guy. I think that's pretty clear. I'm sure some people might have other opinions, but to me, that feels like a safe bet and something I'm excited about. Now, the number 2 running back is where the questions arise. And I think it is going to be a 2A and a 2B. For me, I'm going to go with Chris Curry as the 2A, but really, guys, these two could have been completely interchanged. In 2022, he was grading out at an 82 and getting a decent amount of the reps before he got injured. In 2021, he was a 61 grade, so not great there, but he felt real good this year. He really felt like he was coming into his own. I remember people were talking very highly of him, and then that injury deters the season. The reasons I could see this not happening is one, he's been kind of under the service. I have it on some affirmation that he will be staying at Utah, but you never know. Who knows if he's going to transfer? It's a very crowded running back room at Utah right now. And then how does he come back from the injury? How does he look? Right? Is he ready to go, or is it going to be, he's going to have to work his way back into the lineup? So I have Chris Curry as a 2A there. And then Jalen Glover, a guy we were all really excited about last year as the 2B, an 81.2 grade, which is an awesome grade from a freshman. As you guys already know, in 2021, he was he was still in high school. So that was his first year. but a really good player, a guy that I thought did very well when he saw the field. Definitely some ups and downs, though. Normal from a freshman. There were times where I felt like he tried to do a little too much. Then there were times where I felt like he could have done more. And I'm sure that was kind of a mental battle for him. I think you could see that when you watch the tape at times. And then outside of these three, there's a stacked freshman running back class coming in here, guys. We've got Dijon Duty Stanley, 4-star athlete out of California. We've got, I won't say where everyone's from. I don't have that memorized, but we also have Mike Mitchell, who's some of the best high school tape I've watched. And as you guys probably know, I've watched a lot of high school tape. And then we got John Randall Jr. So 3 4-star guys that are going to come in and play running back. So this is just a crazy good running back room we're about to have. So really, really good looking group. And that's the running backs for Utah. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with how I have this rotation going? Do you guys think the freshmen will play a bigger role? I think this room for me, I feel like there's a 25-30% chance that one of these freshmen just really starts to shine and play a big role. Let me know what you guys think about the running backs. Now, for the offensive line, this is probably one of the toughest ones for me. I feel like the offensive line has a few spots where there's no clear starters, but tons of depth and tons of like variables and variety that we could see. So the starting lineup is what I'm going to guess it's going to be, just knowing how Utah works. I mean, to be clear, I would even say some of these guys, in my opinion, maybe shouldn't be the starter, like just from what I've seen. But Utah seems to think they're the best guy, or at least they did last year. So maybe that'll change. So to the left here at left tackle, we've got Falcon Kamatuli. Kauma Tuli, I think that's how you say it. In 2022, in over 100 snaps, he graded out as 71.3. In 2021. Again, a little over 100 snaps, 71.2. So I feel like for him, I don't understand why Utah hasn't been playing him more already. So that leaves me a little confused. Uh, but, you know, is what it is there. I still think his talent seems to be undeniable. At least he's decent. You know, who knows what it'll look like with a bunch of reps in a season, but I think right now he seems like the clear guy to be playing left tackle. When I look at the grades, when I think about last season and the season before, I feel good about Falcon. So the next guy is Michael Mokofisi. Now, in 2021, in a small sample size, he graded out as a 69.4, which is a good grade. But this year, rough go for Michael. 2022, a 55 grade. That's a good chunk below average. It's not a guy you want in the starting lineup. If he was a guy that came in for injuries, that's not too bad. But, um, overall, I don't love Michael being in the starting lineup, but because he started so many games last year, the reason I have him in here is that hopefully he'll be taking strides in the offseason and we'll see him take some steps and maybe he can get that grade up a little bit and be a little more towards average, a little more serviceable. That's my guess at what's going to happen there. So the next guy we got is Paul Miley. Now, Paul Miley, slightly below average grade in 2022, but not terrible. And then in 2021, pretty good grade in the 70s there. So you got to be happy about that. But Paul Miley, I'd feel pretty locked in about the fact that this guy will be a starter on the offensive line. There's no real bad grades. Real bad grades overall. And you got to like that. Solid, consistent. You don't want to make too many changes on the O line unless you have to. So I'm happy with him coming back to be a starter. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him take, a jump next year to more towards like a 70 rather than a low 60 grade. Now, Keaton Bills, a guy that stepped up this last season, was one of the best guards in the Pac 12. In 2022, he graded out at 70.5. So, it's a good grade there. 2021, slightly below average at a 62.3, but not terrible. So, solid, consistent, a guy you like. And, I'm happy to have Keaton Bills back. Really good offensive lineman and a guy that can help solidify the unit. Now, Tawa Lomea is a guy that I had so much hype going into this year. And he graded out at a 59.2 this year, which is not terrible, but pretty, it's well below average. It's not what you want to see. In 2021, when he played guard, he was a 68.2, which is a much better grade and really where you'd want to see him. Um, and honestly, I think a lot of that is as toward the end of the season, Laumea started to play a little better because that grade was as low as like in the 40s at times. So, I mean, he's not a guy I want out there at tackle. You can see at the bottom of the screen, and let me be clear, I'm not saying I don't want him on the lineup. I don't want him at tackle. I'm gonna throw out an idea, and I want to hear what you guys think about it in a minute here. But we got guys down here at the bottom of the screen like Jared Kump. Uh, he didn't grade out very well this year, but he seems to be a consistent guy that the offensive line coaches like and the offense likes. Um, Good. There's a decent group of depth here. I mean, Keith Olson, he's the guy in the middle. For me, the reason I put him in here is I like the high school film so much, and he's got a year in the system already. I wouldn't be shocked if he starts to get some reps. But a lot of these other guys could do a good job too. A lot of the other guys I have on the screen here are not grading out poorly. So I wouldn't be shocked if they started to rotate in, or at least you start to hear some of these names. Um, Now, what I would love, this is what I would love. I don't know if this is realistic or not, right? What I would love is if Michael Mokofisi became more of a, backup, is if the grade doesn't go up, right? If he becomes more of a backup, we take say Tao Lomea, we shift him back to left guard where he's done such a good job at guard, and hopefully Spencer Fano or Caleb Lomu, we have two four-star offensive tackles coming in, can go in there and solidify that right tackle spot. Now, that line looks a lot better than this one. The one I just projected. Like imagine Setao Lomea is closer to that 68 grade if he goes back to guard. Michael Mokofisi is good enough to be a decent backup, but then we got one of those young freshmen. If one of them can step up and become a really good tackle, or at least a serviceable tackle, that'd be a big deal. Also, Jaron Kumpo, I mentioned earlier, didn't grade out well, but he was playing guard where he's more of a tackle. I just think there's a lot of options that we could throw around here that could work, right? So, a lot going on at offensive line. Really tough to project. So much volatility at this group, but overall, we got like a good 10 guys. Like it's a 10 guys deep of like decent players, not even including the freshmen coming in that should be pretty good. But that's the offensive line. I know it was kind of all over the place. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys think it's going to be a different lineup, I'd love to hear your opinions and what you think about how I broke it down. Now we're going to be moving into the defense. And if you haven't already, guys, please make sure you like this video. I'm sure you guys have noticed this took a lot of time to put together. And you guys showing me some love with that like button would mean a lot. So please do give it a like. Also, comment down below, guys. What are you thinking so far? I know we've been talking about it every page, but I do love to hear you guys' opinions. So please don't be afraid to throw them out. And then most importantly, guys, if you guys want some of that Utah Utes football content in the off season, this is the place to be. Make sure you subscribe. If you really love it, hit that notification bell, man. I have a group of you guys that just watch the videos right away, right after I post them, and that always means a lot. But I won't spend too much more on that. Let's go ahead and dive into the defense. We're going to start with the defensive line and the edge rushers. I'm just talking. I mean, we kind of use defensive ends a lot of the time when I say edge rusher, but I'm going to look at our top two defensive interior and then our top two edge rushers. So, edge rusher, the first one is Van Fillinger to the left of the screen. Got injured last year, had a ton of hype going into last year, and really did not look awesome at the beginning of the year. He slowly started to come back towards the middle of the year. And then it felt like right when he was about, like he started to get some sacks racked up, started to look pretty good. And right when he was about to take off, he gets injured. So sad to see, but even with quite a down year for Van, it really was not a great showing by him. I still think it's exciting that he got a 63.7 grade and a 64.7 grade the year before. So, two decent grades where you can be happy about the production. And he has that athleticism to potentially be a really good player. I think this next year is going to be a big year for Van. I hope I know the guy's putting in the time in the offseason, but I'm excited to see what he can put together for this coming year. Now, the next guy we're going to be looking at is going to be Jonah Ellis to the right of your screen there. In 2021, maybe slightly below average player, but not bad at all. He was like a solid rotational guy. And then in 2022, he had a 73.7 grade. He really shined this year, flying all over the field really fast. A guy that uses his smaller frame to move laterally very quickly. And you'll see him getting into the play on almost every tackle. So, really good player in Jonah. Those two at edge, I mean, you want Van to take that next step, but I think with those two at edge rusher, I'm pretty happy. I think you definitely could do way worse. This is a solid duo of guys that become uh, should be a pretty fearsome duo as the season goes on. I'm actually pretty excited as I take a look at him here. And then for other edge rushers, you'll see that at the bottom of the screen there. Connor O'Toole is the first one. O'Toole, good rotational edge rushers, got a lot of reps. To the right of him, Mickey Sugaturaga, another guy that got a lot of reps. Right, these guys were switching in and out, and became pretty good edge rushers. And I like that they stay fresh. I mean, even if they're grading out at 60s, these guys are both low 60s as well. But even if they're grading out like that, if you're keeping your great guys fresh and these guys keep doing a good job, I mean, that's a good thing, right? You four edge rushers that can all be decent playmakers, and then these guys are good enough to fill in and keep Van and Jonah fresh. And then when Van and Jonah get in, they're ready to just tear someone's head off. And the third guy you see down there at edge rusher is a guy that did not grade out well this year, but it was only on 13 reps. Is Chase Kennedy. He's a guy that I've been talking about a lot, and I'm definitely a little bit biased here, but I this was that the I talk to you guys about it sometimes. If I loved a guy's tape and I see the potential, I'm gonna keep bringing him up. Chase Kennedy, I would not be shocked to see him start getting more reps at edge rusher. He looked a lot bigger. I noticed it during the season. He looked like he got thick, really athletic guy, and I'm really hoping he can start to work his way into that rotation this year. Okay, then let's move on to the defensive interior, which is basically D tackles. So the first guy I want to talk about is Samodi Peppa, a guy that didn't get a crazy high number of snaps, but was getting the third most snaps out of all the defensive interiors and really started to establish himself as one of the better players in this defense. It made no sense to me why he wasn't getting in more. He's a pretty big guy, though. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a stamina thing. Um, Really good player, guys. This guy was flying all over the field. He was a freshman, 75.5 grade. That's a very good grade. And a guy that I'm really excited to see take that next step this year. Really excited about Samodi Peppa. All right, then the other defensive interior that I'm going to expect to be a starter is going to be Junior Tafuna. Junior Tafuna in 2022 took a small step at a 62.3, still slightly below average, but not bad. 2021, a 59.2. I actually think he was all Pac-12 freshman, a freshman all Pac-12 that year, so that was nice. And then we got two other defensive interiors. You got Keanu Tanuvasa and you got Miki uh, Malahi, something like that. So the I forgot how to say that guy's name, but he didn't grade out very well, and he actually got a good amount of snaps. And then the opposite for Keanu Tanuvasa, there's a lot of Polynesian names going around here, and he actually Tanuvasa graded out pretty well, but in a low volume of snaps. So you got a decent. I think this whole D line looks pretty solid, and a lot of backups to where if any of the starters really start to struggle, you got a lot of guys that can get in there and help out. So looks good. That's the defensive line. Let me know what you guys think. Are there anyone else I missed that could be a rotational guy or a guy you guys think can make an impact? Let me know, guys. All right, and this is definitely one of my favorite rooms in the entire roster. So the linebacker room, really solid, guys. I think we should feel really good about the linebacking core we have going into this season. So let's start with Lavani Damuni. Now, he was a transfer that a lot of people are very excited about, and for good reason. Racked up tons of tackles and was playing tons of snaps for Stanford. I mean, even though that grade is a little below average at a 61.8, this is on a guy that didn't have a great team around him. and really was the stud of that Stanford defense. I know it was a bad team, but still, he was the guy on that team. And I think if Mahmoud Diabate from last year tells us anything, he was a guy when I saw the PFF grades, I was quite critical, right? Um, but he took huge leaps. Grade wise, he did so much better this year than he did last year. And that's a really good sign. Now, Damuni, 2021, he was a 49 grade. That's pretty terrible. That's like one of the worst grades we'll see today. If not, no, I think Yasmin had the worst grade. His 2021 grade was a 44. But I'm expecting a decent leap. I think we'll get it at least above average to good grade from Damuni this year, and he should start to become a playmaker for the Utes pretty soon. I'm excited. Then we got Lander Barton here, 4-star freshman. Lander Barton last year played tons of snaps for the Utes, basically a starter in every game. 73.1 grade. You got to be really excited about that. Wasn't perfect, right? But that's a good grade, and he did very well. I felt like in general, he wasn't making a ton of mistakes. He made some plays, he made some key stops, and a lot of the poor part, like he had some poor grades early in the year, and he slowly, got better as time went on and started to become a playmaker. And then we got Karine Reed, who really started to shine this year. I can think of a couple games where he really felt like he was the leader of the defense at times. He really impressed me. 2022, 74.4 grade, very good grade. 2021, it was a 58.5. And if you guys remember, we talked about him going into the season where he needed the consistency. He had some really good games in 2021, like the Washington State game, but he wasn't able to put it together week in and week out, and he did it this year. And I think he did an awesome job, and I am stoked for this linebacker room. And looking at the depth behind these three starters makes it even that much more exciting. Justin Medlock didn't see a ton of reps this year, but I know he's a guy the coaching staff is excited about and feels good about. I saw games where they tried to get him in there and they tried to get him reps. Andrew Mateafa, really good run defender, overall good linebacker. Then we got Hayden Fury, who for me, he's another one of those guys that when he gets in does such a good job that I'm shocked he doesn't get some more love and some more playing time from this coaching staff. Really good player, guys. But overall, you look at these, the starting three should be a very good group. And the next three, like the guys that are going to be backing these three up, are going to be studs. I mean, legit, I'd feel confident with any of these three backups getting in for a series or two. So really good group in this linebacker room. Let me know if I'm missing anyone, and let me know what you guys think about this group. Finally, we're going to talk about the cornerbacks and safeties, and I could see this being the most controversial position group we talk about today. Um, just a lot of variables. I think you guys will probably agree on the starting five. I'm not sure though. So let's start with cornerback one, Zemiah Vaughn. I think Zemiah Vaughn really established himself this past year and started to look like a guy that can handle going against number one receivers. Made a bunch of nice plays, a bunch of critical plays that helped Utah win games. In 2021, he had a slightly below average grade, but good enough to get in there, get some reps at a 62.1. Then in 2022, a 76.9. That's a very, very good grade, bordering on elite grade. So awesome to see him step up and get it done there. Now, cornerback two, you'll see that at the right of the screen here. Um, we have Miles Battle. He is the transfer out of Ole Miss. In 2021, he had a 71.6 grade, not a ton of reps, but enough to make it worth mentioning. And then in 2022, he had a 62.2, which isn't terrible, below average, but he did have a lot of reps in that in the SEC. So a guy that I feel like he's going to be the cornerback too. And I think he'll be getting better coaching than he would at Ole Miss, which is a good sign. And then at other corners, we got Elijah Davis, Jocelyn Laska, Fabian Marks. I mean, we got a bunch of guys that I could see getting in there and rotating in. Like Fabian Marks saw a lot of playing time in 2021. More of a run defender. You don't want your corner's number one strength to be run defense, but is what it is. I think the top end of this cornerback room looks pretty solid. I would be a little concerned if we have to deal with any injuries. I could see some problems there, but who knows? The reason I brought up Jocelyn Alaska and Elijah Davis is who knows how those two have progressed, right? They're a year in, they've been in the program for a year, they had a good amount of hype coming in, so we'll see. We also got some really good freshmen coming in at corner, which I wouldn't be surprised to see them get in, like Smith Snowden, CJ Blocker. So, it's just tough to rely on freshmen, but I do feel like the cornerback room has a lot of unknown guys that have a lot of high upside. So take from that what you will. And then talking about the safeties, guys, Cole Bishop is the man in 2021. Okay grade, maybe just right tiny bit below average at a 62.8. But if you guys remember that season, he was cleaning clocks over the middle, dude. He was racking up hit sticks, and it was awesome to watch. And then in 2022, he follows it up with a 75.6 grade. Funny enough, the run defense was the worst part of that grade. It was actually a good grade, but his pass rush and coverage were what made that grade so good, which is a good sign because that's kind of what he lacked in 2021. And I have a lot of confidence in Cole Bishop headed into 2023. Now, this next one you'll see for JT Broughton and Sione Vaki, I put safety slash slot. And the reason I put that is Sione Vaki played slot corner this past year and killed it, a 79.5 grade. That's an elite grade, right? And that's on a good amount of snaps. He was doing that for us for quite a few games. Like the whole second half of the year, he was like the guy. So that was awesome to see. So he did great at slot. But I feel like to me, he's a safety, and I wouldn't be shocked to see us move him back to the safety opposite Cole Bishop, right? And if that happens, I could see JT Broughton being the slot corner, right? That would make sense. I'm surprised JT Broughton's grades aren't worse. Um, they're average grades, and I'm not mad to see that. My thing is I don't want JT Broughton on the outside covering number one receivers. But I do think if they did keep Sione Vaki in the slot at slot corner, I don't think it'd be the worst idea in the world to move JT Broughton to to safety, right? I think that might not be the worst thing in the world. I mean, he's a good run defender, right? He's a tough guy. I mean, who knows? And then other guys of safety, we got Clayton Isbell, we got JP. Good guys that could play safety. Didn't I know Clayton didn't grade out super well. I'm not sure what JP's grade was, but either way, um, this group should work itself out nicely. I'm sure you guys are starting to get what I'm saying here. A lot of variables in this group, but this would be my guess at who the starting five are. I'm not saying they're going to be exactly how I have them listed. I think Zamaya and Miles are going to be the outside corners. Cole will be the safety. And then I can see if Sione stays at slot corner, I wouldn't be shocked to see JT get moved to safety or maybe someone else come in to play the other safety role. Who knows? Either way, though, that is the cornerbacks and safeties. And guys, that is the entire breakdown for the Utah Utes 2023 season. We broke down the roster and the depth chart. If you guys appreciated this video, please make sure you like it. Also, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Anything I left out, anything I forgot to talk about, and tell me which position group you guys are most excited about. And also, if you guys want that Utah Utes football content for the offseason and for going into next year, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel because I think this is going to be your source. I don't think everyone's going to keep it going in the coming weeks and months the way we will. So, outside of that, guys, I hope you appreciated it. I'm out. Go Utes.